Hey, folks, this is the fighting nerd Ray Chilensky and his co host Jolly Roger coming to you from the Resistance Bunker. A while ago, I made a video about Star Trek Discovery. I watched the first 4 episodes, couldn't take any more, and put up a video. I think it was called My Final Judgment of Star Trek Discovery. Well, I decided that in fairness, and also just being a nerd, it just didn't, and a Star Trek nerd at that, it just didn't feel right not watching the entire first season. So, over the last couple of days, I caught up on Star Trek Discovery. And I have modified my judgment. It still sucks. It just doesn't suck as bad as I thought it would, seen as a whole. There were glimmers of hope. Not many, but some. Now, the thing is this. What I think happened, just analyzing it from my point of view, and I don't have any actual information, but what it seemed to me as a writer myself, I have novels, the Fire Team Alpha series, and the Blessed Warrior series, PandoraPrinciple, Fire Team Alpha Book 3, just came out, just saying. Google Ray Chilensky. I'll put links in the description of this video for that book, for my books. Okay, enough with the shameless self-promotion. But anyway, being a writer myself, this is what I think happened. And there is some information to back this up because of all the production trouble they had getting the series up there with the writers and the problem with the continuity. Was it in Prime? Was it in the Abrams verse? Was it standalone? Was it a Prime, but a new timeline Prime and all this other crap? This is what I think happened. They got up to about episode 8 or 9 and found out that they were writing the show into nowhere. I really think this because the show had no vision early on. Yeah, it was a war with the Klingons, but they weren't really Klingons. They were like lizard people. And I'm surprised David Icke and the other lizard people conspiracy guys don't jump on that because they even have the elongated skulls from Alia Marzulli in the Nephilim Chronicles and all of that. But war with the Klingons, and then they had this side thing about the spore drive and this poor creature that they were torturing to make the spore drive work so they can, basically it was space folding. They would fold space and just pop in, shoot up the Klingons and pop out. Great thing to be able to do if you're at war with the lizard people. I can't call them Klingon. They're really more like Gorn, but I digress. Anyway, this is what I think happened. Okay, what we've got, we've written ourselves into a corner. What we've had before sucks. We need to do two things. We need to make it not suck so much, and we also need to distract the viewer from the fact that what we've done so far sucks. So what they did was take this Divergent for, what was it, 3 or 4 episodes, maybe 5, in the middle of the series, and make it diverge into the parallel universe. You know, the Mirror universe. So they get to the Mirror universe, and did you anybody else notice that they kind of took their inspiration from the old Flash Gordon and Buck Rogers series for the Empire? And you have, spoiler alert if you haven't seen it yet, Captain Lorca, the asshole captain. The reason he's an asshole is he is actually from this Mirror universe where pretty much everybody's an asshole. So, he's a traitor, winds up getting killed by the Mirror universe Michelle Yeoh character, whatever her name was. You can tell I'm so impressed I barely remember the character names. Georgia, and I remember her, Georgia or Regina or whatever. And they blow up this great big huge ship, and then they put her around in the alternate universe for a while and have a couple of really cheesy fight scenes. Although, if Michelle Yeoh was still doing her own stunts at her age, she is amazing. But I digress again. They had a couple of really cheesy fight scenes. And then they come back and, they've been gone in the real, and they get back to their universe and find out that 9 months have transpired and the war with the Klingons is all but lost. So, after some hemming and some hawing and they decide that they're going to launch an all-out assault with the help of the alternate universe Michelle Yeoh character, who had conquered Klingon in the Mirror universe and therefore could help them conquer Klingon in this universe. And they're going to do an all-out assault with what ships they have left on Quonos and destroy all their military targets and buy themselves some time in this war. But Sarek and Starfleet Command use the Michelle Yeoh character and the information. They hatch a secret plan to actually destroy the Klingon homeworld by jumping Discovery into a cave system and dropping a really cool but suspiciously small bomb, even for their technology, into the core of the Klingon homeworld and blow it up. And for the old timers in there that remember the old Star Blazers series, or sometimes they call it Space Battleship Yamato, didn't that seem like they ripped that off from the end of the first season of Star Blazers? But I digress again. Anyway, but they get all through this and, they save the universe. Now, the problem with the ending of this series is that they decide not to blow up the Klingon homeworld or even attack it. They take this captured Klingon woman to Kel or Toel or whatever, by caption non-Klingon. And I'm calling them that's what I'll call the Klingons for Discovery, non-Klingons. The captured non-Klingons, or unklingons, like undead. They're not really Klingons, but they're Klingons, so I'm going to call them unklingon's. The unklingon woman that they captured and, who tortured this human mercilessly and imprinted a Klingon person on, and that was a whole different subplot. Watch the show if you want to. Right. But they put the bomb that's going to blow up the planet into the core, and then they give her the detonator and saying, okay, you're in charge now. You can just hold the whole planet hostage and be in charge. Well, there's a lot of things wrong with that. First of all, they didn't mention that it was a dead man switch or anything, so really what they really have to do is kill her and take the detonator. It's pretty much all the Klingon Council would have to do. And even if it was a dead man switch, how long could she maintain that? She's got to sleep sometime. Right? They could find a way to jam the signal. Maybe we'll locate the bomb and defuse it. So counting on this one woman just to hold a hostage and reform the Klingon Empire so it is no longer a threat to the Federation is, like much in this series, stupid. But gigantic plot hole. It was a plan that couldn't work. Right. So, but I said it didn't suck as much as I thought it would after 4 episodes. And it didn't. There were a few glimmers of hope. Most notably, they actually brought a decent-looking version of the USS Enterprise in at the end of the very last episode, which might actually get me, as it's intended to, get me to tune in and see how they handle Captain Pike. They pick some actor, the guy that played that Black Bolt in that awful Inhuman series, to play Christopher Pike. And maybe I want to see how they finally address how Spock could have a human adopted sister who was instrumental in saving the whole Federation and never had mentioned her in 50 years of Star Trek lore. 50 years. So, there's that. Now, the glimmers of hope I saw were in some of the character development, but the one glimmer that I thought I was actually starting to like Lorca. I was thinking, wow, a Starfleet captain that's not Kirk or Cisco that has balls. There's more than two. But he's dead. They might bring back his counterpart, but from what they're saying, he's not going to be the character that I actually started to like. And now see, the thing of it is, the Lorca character was an asshole. But you got to understand, you thought, why he was such an asshole. And he was kind of justified in being an asshole because he understood war. Kind of like the Jellicoe character that everybody hated in the Next Gen, which I was kind of rooting for. Anyway. I'm hoping that they have learned their lessons from this season. Get back with the real continuity. For as much as you can. You can't take back the Unklingons. But I can see some improvement towards the end. They were making an effort to actually make Discovery Star Trek. And I think that's really the glimmer of hope. They were making an effort. But so far, I still don't think it's Star Trek. Now, and every time they drop a little Star Trek Easter egg, they mention the Constitution class ship. And on the monitor, what's his name, the alien, fearful, tall, first officer, acting captain guy, was asking about the traits of a most decorated captains. They showed Pike, April, and Jonathan Archer. Great. But the more they drop those, and that's all fine and dandy, but the more they drop those Easter eggs, they're more than reminding you that you're not watching Star Trek. You are watching Star Trek in name only. So, it's got a second season. I really think that the second season was brought on millennials. I mean, we're talking about the generation that eats Tide Pods and snort condoms here, that probably haven't been exposed to Star Trek as it should be, especially as it really should be the original series and the movies based on the original series, discounting Star Trek 5 and 6. So I will probably give a few episodes of the second season a chance. Now there's some nitpicking things that I have to mention. The small arms, the weapons. I'm a small arms guy. I love the Bang Bang toys. I do. I know that alone will probably get this video buried by YouTube even more than it already is. Small channel, poor equipment, out of sync audio. I know there's not many people going to watch this anyway. But whoever designed those props for the small arms of the Federation probably is from California and is probably a raging liberal and has never held an actual weapon. Don't know that for sure. But from my observations, I think I am justified in making that assumption. Because you can clearly see at the butt end of that weapon a buttstock. But it's only about this far from the pistol grip. And you find the people that are trying to look like they have some training with weapons and are trying to look like they're using some semblance of tactics, which I got to give them credit for that. That's more than you saw on Next Gen or even Deep Space Nine and Enterprise. It looks like these people had some semblance of small unit tactics, which is, again, a glimmer of hope. But back to the guns. Now, what it looks like to me is that the prop designer looked at some weapons online, pictures of some weapons, probably online, and design them after that. Not really bothering to figure out how they work, particularly in regards to the stock, because it looks like these are supposed to have collapsible stocks. You pull the stock out, you put the stock when you want to fire the weapon, you put the stock in when you want to put it away and make it handier. The M4 has one of those, the standard weapon right now for American troops. A lot of weapons have folding stocks. The problem is that the props apparently have stocks that don't actually extend. They're just integral to the weapon. So you find these guys holding their guns back here like this because they want to put the stock against their shoulder and the stock is too short. So whoever designed these probably has never fired an actual weapon before and didn't bother even to really do any research. Now that's a nitpicky thing for the gun guys, but still, it's lazy. But the idea that they're actually like doing, wraparound diagonal clearing and things like that, I got to give them points. But they continue with the huge continuity problems. And Captain April's site is always on this, and he's right. The holographic technology that they have, you never saw those kind of holograms, even on Next Gen, let alone the original series. And this is supposed to be taking place before the original series. Captain Pike is in charge of the Enterprise, folks, so this is Kirk. So if you go by continuity, it looks like Kirk should be like a lieutenant manning a phaser control station on the USS Valiant. And they have holodecks. Lorca and the security guy that turns out to be Klingon was in a holodeck doing some training. And they have holograms, a holographic communication system on the bridge that are interactive and move around the environment. Now, ask yourself a question here. If this is supposed to be in the prime timeline, how are they managing to do that almost 200 years before Voyager? When on Voyager, for a large part of that series, their doctor hologram, which I hated, couldn't leave sickbay because there weren't the proper holo emitters. And then he had that fancy smancy mobile emitter that he got from the future. Largely probably because the writers wanted the doctor to be able to get out of the sickbay. So they couldn't do that with existing technology in Voyager, but they have technology that's at least approaching that level, ship-wide evidently, or at least on the bridge in the captain's ready room, before Kirk, before the original series. Look, folks, if you don't want to do the prime timeline, if you don't want to use the continuity of the original series and those that followed, then be honest about it. But don't piss down our backs and telling us it's raining. It's not in the prime timeline. It's not in the Abramsverse. You created your own timeline. Own that. So, and of course, they have finally explained why Kirk wasn't folding around space with spores. Because they have it has to have an organic component to the drive system, and they can't use people, and they won't torture another creature. So, well, they can use people, but it's hard on them. But that's another thing. Okay, they kept making a cheap engineer do these, and he did like 133 jumps in a row, and it damn near killed him. Right, but that was an extreme circumstance. Just for jumping around the universe, wouldn't it be possible to make the same kind of genetic alteration and put in the implants that they put on the chief engineer of the Discovery? And just have maybe, say, 10 people modified like that per ship, so you could have different people share the load. So you could have these space folding ships or jump capable ships or whatever you want to call them. These, basically ships that teleport across space time. Couldn't they just have a few people that were trained and modified to do that per ship? And then, well, yeah, I mean, and if the Federation was only ones that had that technology, at least until somebody else stole it, they would pretty much be in charge of the galaxy. Just saying. It makes sense, and it's something that the writers just decided they didn't want to deal with. So, like I said, it still sucks. The continuity is off. I mentioned this in my other video. Balance of Terror. The Federation is shocked by cloaking technology used by the Romulans. And then they're shocked again a couple of years later when they find out the Klingons are using cloaking technology. But, again, before the first season, at least 10 years before the first season, every Klingon ship in their fleet has a cloaking device. How, if it's in the Prime timeline? It's on the Prime timeline, folks. But they did some things with the characterization. And it looks like the writers finally have some grasp of what they're actually trying to do. So hopefully the second season will get its act together. Don't get me wrong. I still don't think this is Star Trek. And I still think it sucks. But it sucks less than I thought it would initially. So I have been ranting now for a while. In short, there is a feeble glimmer of hope for Discovery. Now, it was kind of left up in the air who's going to be captain. I think if they were going to make it Burnham, it would have been Burnham by now. I'm hoping it's not the tall, skinny alien do that, because I really dislike that character intensely. So, we'll see. And another thing that they have to do in the second season, and if by some utter miracle anybody involved with the show sees this, what about the other members of the command staff? There is that woman with the cyberpunk hair and the implant, and there's the African American woman that's the helmsman, and they're just kind of there. They're kind of like Travis was all through Enterprise, just there. So do something with them. For some reason, even though they never let her do anything, I've taken kind of a liking to the African American woman at the helm. Don't know why. The actress that plays her seems to have an intensity that, quite frankly, everybody else on that cast doesn't have. She has a stage presence that kind of makes her stand out. So we're going to see another captain next season, and let's hope. I guess that's what I would say. That glimmer of hope is the bottom line here. There is a glimmer of hope for Discovery. All right, so I have been ranting now for almost a half an hour. And most people, if they watch it at all, are going to turn it off after about the first 5 minutes, so I'm going to stop. This is the Fighting Nerd, Ray Chilensky, and his co-host, Jolly Roger, bidding goodbye to you from the Resistance Bunker. Remember, words make history.